A step-by-step guide to successful self-publishing. If it wasn't successful, I wouldn't be standing here, I think. Or, as I call it, how to do it without any marketing money. For those of you who heard the earlier speech here by Marek, I thought it was a really good sort of vision to do everything from scratch without asking for a lot of money, without really knowing how to spend it. So it's an indie perspective on this. There you have it. It's if you can choose your parents, please tell them not to name you that, because no one will ever be able to pronounce your name. And since I have such a bad name, I've decided to name my studio something really poor as well. It's called Imogen Form, and we're based in Gothenburg, Sweden. I founded the company in 1997. It was a web company at that time. It started as a multimedia company, transitioned into a web company, and then those were really dark and horrible times. We weren't making any games at that time, so we were basically a consultant agency. And then there was a publisher that asked us to save one of their projects. It was a kids game that had sort of gone awry, and so sort of slipped into gaming on a banana peel, if you like. It was a kids game that we made first there for that publisher, and kids game aren't like first-person shooters. They're quite different. There's no blood, very little blood at least in those games, and we didn't really do any own IPs for a long time. We made kids games. We made a lot of money from that, and it was a good starting point for a small team, but there was no real legacy. No one was ever writing about us, and I thought it was sad. We were kind of getting older, and we were doing all this work for somebody else, and then Apple changed all that with the App Store, and we started making iOS games. The games we made in the beginning weren't that great. How many people have played either of those games up on the screen right now? Okay, we've got very sensible people in the audience. And then we made a really great game, actually, in 2011 called Untitled, which is a strategy game featuring ants, and they're being attacked by other insects. And it's a hell of a game, really. You should get it. It'll cost you money, surprisingly, but it'll be worth it. And it was a huge thing for us to actually have a hit game, because all of a sudden we were somebody. So we sort of moved on. Oh, by the way, it's the first lesson learned here from a huge mistake was that I promised my wife to take her to Paris once the work with Untitled was done, because we'd been working really intensely on it for a long period. And she was threatening to divorce me, and I said, okay, I'll just finish up this game, and then we'll go to Paris, you and me. And so we went just hours after it was released. We were on the plane to Paris, and it turned out that Apple selected this game to be Game of the Week, and so we made quite a bit of money in those first 72 hours or so. But it was terrible, because I was sitting I was like going up the Eiffel Tower, and I was looking at paintings in the Louvre and stuff like that, and it was terrible. Like that whole, I was supposed to be home talking to journalists and so on. I made very frequent breaks going to the bathroom with my laptop and sort of emailing a little bit, but yeah. So if you release a hit game, don't take my wife to Paris. That's my advice. Then when we were done with that game, we thought, now we're rock stars. We've made this one great game. We can't go wrong now. So we started prototyping ideas that we thought were on the same level as Untitled, that were going to be just as good as that game. And they just didn't turn out right. We prototyped them, and we tried them, and we really tried to think that they were fun to play, but they just weren't good. So we sort of lost our nerve there a little bit and went back into work for hire for a while. And just a month or two into that, working with the publisher again, it was just pure agony that we were compromising from our side. Obviously, we wanted to be paid as much money as possible to do as little work as possible, and they wanted as much done as possible for as little as possible. And in between there, you have this poor little game that suffers, right? It's like nothing good is going to come out of that type of relation. I'm not saying that publishers are bad, but if you get the wrong publisher, it's bad. So don't involve yourself with the wrong publisher. Very sage advice. And then in 2012, we thought that mobile isn't for us anymore, really. It was changing into free-to-play, and we didn't know anything about free-to-play or monetization. We didn't understand all those acronyms, and it was sort of too much to take in. All we wanted to do was make good games. And we realized that this isn't, we're not cut out for this. It's, you have to be sort of a brilliant business person to understand that. And we were just game developers. So we thought maybe we can continue to make paid games for mobile, but it's going to change. It's going to, or the tide is going to turn even more. It's just going in one direction, is what we felt. And so we felt, okay, if we really want to make great games, can we take those games somewhere else? And we realized that whenever I was talking, or whenever anyone was talking to any other game company, everybody was just talking mobile games the whole time. I mean, this is eons ago. It's like 3 years ago, right? We can't remember that far back, but everybody was talking mobile. Mobile. How can you make money? How can you avoid losing money from making games on mobile? And we started thinking, it's like, can't we take those games to other platforms? What's happening with those platform owners? And so we didn't really know anyone at Sony or Microsoft, but we actually released an itty-bitty game for the Nintendo DSi back in 2010, just to see if we could. It was Nintendo's sort of first excuse for like an online shop called the DSiWare store, and it was a horrible shopping experience. It was really sucky, but somehow we just made that money right back from that game. We weren't making any good PR or anything, but it just paid for itself. And so we thought, okay, maybe we should leave mobile for a while and see if we can do this. And so we started working on a game called SteamWorld Dig. Has anyone heard of that game? All right. Yeah, I planted some people here to raise their hands. So that game, when we released it on the Nintendo 3DS, it was an instant hit. We sold very many copies of that game at a very good price. The price point was $10, I think, and $10 for a mobile game had really come and gone. Yeah, you have like the difference in market size is huge, but being a medium-sized fish in a small pond is a little bit tastier than being a very, very small fish in a huge ocean. That's how we reasoned. So it took us 16 years from starting the company to finally make a game that made us somewhat world famous. And so what we did was that we did what we used to do. We sat there and developed this game until there was about 10 days left to release, and then we started talking about how to try and sell this game. And I think it's a very common mistake made by small developers, that we sit and we sort of chisel away at this game, and the game is getting better and better and better and better, and then finally you're supposed to sell it, and you don't have any expertise in how to do that. It's a huge problem for a lot of small developers. And so what we did then was we decided to promote the game in silly ways. We took the game is about mining, and you're in this mining town, and you're steam-driven robots, and it's a very cute sort of 2D game. So we printed fake money, and we printed fake bribe letters, and we sent it out to people that we thought were really influential at sort of key gaming sites. We thought it was a cute trick. Now, obviously, that surfaced at Destructoid, and there was for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we were the worst scum in the world, because we were trying to bribe a gaming site. And then they sort of helped us along the way and said, Destructoid came out immediately after and said, no, it's just for fun. And then everybody thought, oh, they're so cute, these Swedish guys. And then also at release, Nintendo included the game in something called the Nintendo Direct. Do you know what that is? That is a video broadcast that they do whenever they have something big to say about their own games. And they include a few indie titles as well. And we managed to get a full minute there. And so it's, all things combined, SteamWorld Dig made it to #1 in the European eShop, the American eShop, and the Australian eShop. So we actually made quite a bit of money from it. And what we've been doing in the past year is port this game to other platforms. We still haven't come back to mobile, but now it's out on Steam, it's out on PlayStation 4 and Vita, Wii U, it's coming to Xbox One, etc. In the near future, we're going to continue work on Steam, on the SteamWorld universe. We're releasing a game called SteamWorld Heist, which is coming out this summer. It's going to be fantastically awesome, actually. So another thing that we've found is that if you're very small and you've decided to do it yourself, you're not going to work with a publisher. One of the best things you can do is sort of cooperate with companies that are close to you. They don't necessarily have to be close to you geographically, but it really helps if they are, because then you can meet a lot and you can exchange ideas. Coming to conferences like Casual Connect is great. That's one of the big highlights of a conference like this, to talk to other developers, to see what sort of mistakes they've made, and you share your mistakes, and then you learn something. They tell you about something that worked, and you try to implement that. But if you have like a close relationship, like we have with Zoink Games in Gothenburg, what we do is we actually share people. They develop games that are very different from ours. So we're two separate entities, but we sort of share people in the middle that do the PR and the marketing and the publishing work for both studios. And I think there are a lot of possible collaborations like that. It's really worthwhile checking out your near area. Who can you work together with? Obviously, it requires you to be open about everything with that company, but I think working together just grows you. It's quite clever. This is actually we've now come to the topic of the talk, and I've got like a minute left or something. This is the step-by-step guide that I'm talking about. And the first thing is about the game. I'm not going to tell you how to make your games, obviously, but this is what we try to think about when we do it. And it's the game idea itself. I think we have, in the last 2 years, I think we've processed some 200 very different game ideas at Image and Form. Obviously, one person can't think up that many game ideas, so everybody is responsible for coming up with ideas, and we discuss them very often. And it helps you sort of cull out the great ideas from the bad ideas. Good ideas we prototype, and then we discard them, and then we prototype some more, and then we discard that, and then we have in the end we have sort of a good idea. And we find that if we have original ideas, then it really works. I think it's a good idea not to try to copy anyone. I think I've seen very many clones of a Swedish game called Candy Crush Saga, which is also a clone of another game and so on. I'm sure it works out economically, but on many other levels it doesn't work out. It's in the long run, I don't think you can sit and do Me Too products because it just kills you. The team has to be great. You can't include your little brother because your mom said so. It's everyone has to be best at what they do. If they're just half good, see if you can make them do something else or find someone who's better. Because a great team, obviously, you know this. It's the alpha and the omega. And then you have this great idea. You have this great idea for a game, and you have a great team, but you don't have the cash. We had money from past successes and from work for hire work that we did in the past. But if you don't have the money, then just make sure you grow elephant balls and go out and talk about your game to people who actually have cash. I mean, also ladies can grow elephant balls. It's something that you really need to do. If you believe really hard in your game, the money will have to be there. And if you don't want to take the risk, then maybe you should consider working together with a publisher. But make sure you pick and choose wisely. About choosing wisely, when you come to platforms, I told you before that we left mobile because we felt that mobile wasn't for us really, or we were too, our organization wasn't built for making free-to-play games. We weren't experts at monetization, and I felt that there was just such a long stretch to learn that. There are so many other platforms that are interested in your games, and it's not really hard to develop for those platforms either. Those people actually are real people. Think about the mechanics. I mean, a game that works well on mobile with touch input probably won't work as well on a regular console. They're quite different, and vice versa is also true. And then you need to find these platform people. I mean, finding Apple while we were making mobile games, it was really hard, I thought. Finally, I got some contacts at Apple, and until I just put everything into one really braggy, horrible email where I said we had made the best game ever, and I would shoot them if they didn't make it Game of the Week or something, and they fell for it. But there are other people on other platforms as well. I think they're very eager to talk to you, because does anyone have a figure here on how many mobile games are coming out every day? Anyone, please?
179.
Games?
Yeah, mobile games.
Every day?
Yeah, actually, that was the lecture before this one.
Wonderful.
It's only for
It's only for iOS, right. So if you factor in Android, so it's probably about 30,000 or so. So on the other platforms, there are not that many games coming out, and you get a bigger space. Not saying mobile is wrong, no. And then polish that game. Don't release it, or see if you can avoid cutting corners in your development. I think it's really important. You put out something that is really promising, and something is missing from the game, you're always going to be told that it's missing. And you're always going to know it's missing. So make sure it really shines. So, and yeah, don't make bad games. When you submit, just do it right. Make sure that there are no bugs, because it takes forever to iron those things out. And also, when you know that you're about halfway, dare to announce the game. We can be so afraid of of sharing what we're doing because we're afraid someone's just going to steal the idea. I think it could actually work the other way around, that if you announce it, it's sort of like you've patented your idea. And I don't think people are going to rush to steal it from you. Not in Sweden, anyway. And then when you're done, make sure that you're ready to promote it yourself. Don't take my or your wife to Paris. It's a bad idea. Just be ready to promote. And if you're working together with a publisher, you still have a lot of work to do, because you're just going to be really angry if you don't think they're promoting it enough. So just sleep less and write more. And make sure that you love your audience, because they'll love you right back. Also, like when you're at a conference like this and you see a guy talking, you think that guy might know some people. Yeah, probably he actually does. Just make sure you talk to people and don't be afraid to ask, because chances are people will help you if you ask. And when you do promote your game, make sure that you are interesting when you talk to journalists, platform owners, communities, etc. Just be interesting. If you're not interesting at this point, just transform yourself into an interesting version of yourself, because you need to be. Be fun. When I met with Nintendo's head of Europe, is a Japanese guy. He's about this tall, and he had promoted our game really heavily on this Nintendo Direct. So I met him in Gamescom. And when I saw him in the corridor, I just ran towards him and hugged him fiercely. And I held him for about 10 seconds. And then I released him. And then I explained that what he had done, that he had actually changed my life, and everybody in the studio. So maybe he's not going to like me anymore, but he's never going to forget who I am. I mean, if you do that, hugging doesn't hurt. Hugging is nice. And this story sort of spread. So when I met one of the guys at Sony America at E3, he ran up to me and hugged me fiercely. I was a little bit taken aback, but then, yeah, I had become the hugging guy. Make it personal. Journalists are humans. Sometimes you don't think that, but they actually are, and they need personal contacts. They want to have a personal relation with you. So just be fun and interesting with journalists. They will remember you. And when you, on social media, when you're putting stuff out there, don't terminate the conversations that you have with people. If they answer you back on something, make sure you sort of slip in an extra question or something so they can keep it going. I'm not saying that you should sort of stalkerish to keep asking a lot of questions. Don't do that, but keep it going. And for social media, have a plan. You can plan very long ahead what you're going to do week by week by week up until release of a game, during a release, and after the release of a game. Make sure you have that plan, because social media feels sort of spur of the moment, that really clever social media people are really clever people and good at what they do. But I think a lot of it is that they plan ahead. And then make your community root for you. There's a fabulous incident here that I'll tell you over a beer this evening, which I won't have time for now. But make sure that the community loves you and roots for you. They want you to succeed. And they are your success. If your community loves you, they will buy your games, as long as you just follow the steps before and make the best game ever, etc. And then stagger your releases if you're going to more than one platform. Release it on one platform, 3 months to the next, 3 months to the next, etc. You can get a really good lifespan out of your game that way. And remember why you're doing this. I mean, I don't know what you guys did before you were in gaming, but I bet it sucked really bad, because doing this is the best thing in the universe. And we shouldn't be giving it up. I mean, we have a responsibility to ourselves. If we want to continue making games, we have to make the best games we can, and we have to have the most fun team to work with, etc. So just make sure you have those things, and that we're actually all very privileged that we can be doing this. So let's not forget it. So let's make really, really great games. Thank you. Questions?
Do we have any question? Maybe I can ask something.
Sure.
Brjann, when you start your company or creating games, you start with mobile. Then you go through all the other platforms. So which are your future plans? Are you going to cross-platform, back to focusing on mobile? So
I think, yeah, that's a good question. We're going to continue to make games for all kinds of platforms. And yes, we are going back to mobile. There was like SteamWorld Dig, when we made that, the controls of that game were very gamepaddy. We couldn't come up with a good way to make it a touch game. The next game, SteamWorld Heist, that is coming, is actually perfect for mobile and tablets. So we are going to go that way with that game. Yeah.
Okay. Any other question?
Sir?
Yep.
Oh, that's a very good question. Is it going to be premium or free to play? At this point, we're planning to make it premium. There is, I think, you wonderful people who have understood the free-to-play model. I congratulate you that you're making tons of cash that way. I think it's too hard for us. We are going to make it a premium game, and I think that the porting cost from console or PC to mobile is not that high. We use our own C++ tech, and we are quite used to just adding a wrapper to whatever platform we're going to. So yes, it's going to be a premium game, and whatever money we make from that on mobile is going to feel like extra money. And I think when I say premium, I don't think we're going to charge $2 or $3. I think we're going to try to charge $10 for the game. So I think my mom will buy it, so we'll have one customer. Sir?
Okay, last question, please, because we're running again out of time.
Okay, so you released the SteamWorld on 3DS 2013.
Yep.
How do you think the platform has changed since that time, and if you were to make the game today, would you still target 3DS?
Yeah, most definitely. The Nintendo 3DS was the perception of the Nintendo 3DS was that it's extremely hard to develop for it, and Nintendo is just a wall of bureaucracy, that it's really, really hard to get in touch with them. And yeah, everything was so difficult. And I think it was one of the barriers that a lot of developers were not going to the 3DS. But we've sold hundreds of thousands of copies on the 3DS. If you charge $1 per game, it's not that much money. But if you charge $10 per game, it actually starts adding up. And then if you factor in the other platforms as well, it's not bad business. It's actually quite, for us, who are not monetization experts, I'll say that again, it's actually a quite clever platform to develop for. Because the ocean is, maybe that's not an ocean, maybe it's a lake, but it's very blue, it's very blue. It's full of fish, well, in the sense that it's full of money. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.